All right. I think we're live or close to it. Yes, we are now live on YouTube. Okay, I need to turn off my speaker over there because that's going to create some interference. Hey, YouTube friends, thank you for joining us. We're about to start. Just about to start. We haven't started yet. We've got about 5 minutes, but you are fortunate to be joining us here as we're in a live Zoom webinar today for facing your giants. And we've all encountered it, right? You're going through life and suddenly this huge giant pops up right in front of you, getting in your way, stopping you from what? We're going to get into that today. Okay, that's an important question. But we extend a special greeting to those of our friends who are joining us on YouTube. Once we start, folks, I will not be monitoring the YouTube chat and comments. You guys are welcome to interact there on YouTube, but I'm going to be paying attention here live on Zoom to our registered audience. And it's not because I don't love you there on YouTube. I do. You guys are our family, our Live on Purpose family. I just will not be able to monitor it once we start the webinar. I see none of your business out there. I think I might know who that is. Welcome. Those of you who are here in Zoom, check in the chat. We also have the Q&A open. A little later in the webinar, we're going to be taking your questions. Okay, your questions. So that's the benefit of being here live on Zoom. For those of you on YouTube, go ahead and put your questions there in the comments. I may not be able to get to those live. So no promises there. I'm going to take care of the people who are registered here on Zoom first, but I wanted to include you. I didn't want to leave you out today. So that's why you're getting a live stream of this special live webinar, Facing Your Giants. We will begin right at the top of the hour. So we've got a couple of minutes left. I would encourage you to have something ready, to take some notes, because I'm guessing you're going to notice something. And here's what I would suggest on note taking. Don't necessarily write down what I'm saying. In fact, you can go back and review it. Debbie, you were asking, is it going to be recorded? Yeah, I'm going to record it. I'll provide a replay link for those of you who are registered. And for those of you on YouTube, guess what? It gets posted. As soon as we're done with the stream, I'll post it there on the channel. So you can go review it anytime you want. Don't take notes on what I say necessarily. Take notes on what your mind, what your amazing, brilliant mind tells you that you needed. What did you come here for today? And if you're just barely finding us in the live stream, something caused you to click on this and say, hey, let's see what's up with Dr. Paul today. Whatever your mind tells you is what you need to have. Okay, that's the important thing. It's not so much about what I say. It's really more about what you hear. Stay hydrated. I say that as I pull up my hydration. I'm going to do that. Take notes, stay hydrated. Be ready to capture whatever it is that you came for. My promise is to provide that to you to the extent that I can with my training, my experience. I'm bringing it all. And as we get started here, I'll make some other introductions and we'll be off to the races. Okay, my clock says it's go time. So I'm going to start the recording. Here we go. Welcome to Facing Your Giants. This is a live web class with me, Dr. Paul Jenkins. I am so glad to spend this time with you today. Let's jump right in. Why are you here? You registered or you discovered this. We are live streaming to YouTube. I mentioned that before we started the recording here for the webinar. Why are you here? What is it that caused you to jump in right now And for most of you, I've got some email responses back from some of you. Why did you come? What is it that you're looking for? Guess what? You've got stuff. I think we should do a bumper sticker. Got stuff? Yes, you do. Everybody's got stuff. And by stuff, I mean things are happening. You've got a diagnosis. You've got a life condition. You've got a financial situation. You've got relationship stuff. Everybody's got stuff, health stuff, fitness stuff, whatever it is. And this is what I mean by the giant. You've got something in your mind that resonated with you when I said facing your giants, and you're like, oh yeah, I got one of those. That is a common element. So that's one of the reasons that you're here. Another thing that I'm hearing from you is that you want peace. You want hope. Debbie, you're saying in the chat, overwhelmed, feel like I'm being buried alive. Yes. Yes, it's so overwhelming. It just piles up on you. And what we're craving is that peace and hope, really. Because if this continues, how am I ever going to swim to the top? Can you relate? I'm also hearing that you're ready for a change. Enough already. I remember when I was going through my bankruptcy, that was one of my giants. That's no longer a giant for me, but that was one that I faced earlier in my life. And I remember thinking, oh, enough already. Let's pass this test and move on to whatever's next, shall we? And I'm sensing that from you too. You're ready for a change. Now, who am I? Some of you know me already. A lot of people who attend this are already following, or they're members of our membership at Live on Purpose Central. We have positivity practitioners here. It's part of our family. Some of you are just encountering me for the first time. I am Dr. Paul Jenkins. I am the positivity psychologist. I created this. Before positive psychology was even a thing, I've developed models of positivity that go far beyond the traditional just think positive that you hear from motivational speakers or gurus on the stage. We get down to the science, and I have helped thousands of people just like you to have more peace and hope in their hearts and minds, more joy in their key relationships. And we do this through proven principles of positive psychology. And I'm a good 3 decades into this career. Okay. I've been around the block a few times. I've seen a few things. Honestly, you can't shock me. I know your giant is huge to you, but I know stories. Okay. You can't shock me after 30 years of clinical experience. So we're going to take it on, whatever it is. Whatever it is. Okay. We're going to take it on. Just as a quick reminder as we get started, those of you who are here on Zoom, live, registered for the webinar, I'm not talking to you on YouTube right now. You can certainly put comments and questions in the chat, but I won't be monitoring that live. Here on Zoom, I will be. Okay, so if you're here live, go to the Q&A. Ask whatever question it is. I'm not going to answer it immediately, but I've got a time reserved at the end. In fact, here's how it's going to roll. My promise to you, you will get, I promise, a new look at your giant. You will get 4 specific steps to face that giant. And others like it because guess what? Giants aren't alone. They come in packs. And when one falls, another one shows up. Okay. And I'm not saying that to discourage you. I'm just saying, welcome to the planet. That's how we roll here. You will get a special offer that I've designed just for you about a master class. I'm going to tell you about that a little later on. You'll get the tools you need here today, and there's more. So I'm going to share that with you. And I'm going to save some time at the end to answer your questions. So that's how we'll roll today. Be ready to take some notes. Stay hydrated. Let's jump in. And it's time to face our giants. What is a giant? Bruce Wilkinson described it this way in his book, The Dream Giver. A giant is a very real and completely overwhelming obstacle that you encounter on the road to your dream. I shared with you already that I've got a little experience of my own with giants. No surprise. I mean, I'm a human being. I am the positivity psychologist, and stuff happens to me and every other citizen of the planet. That's how this life is designed. And the first chapter of my book, Pathological Positivity, is titled Lightning Strikes. And you know how you're just going along through life and then boom, out of nowhere, this thunderous bolt of lightning just takes you off your feet and destroys whatever it is you thought you were creating. This is what happened to me years ago as I realized that negative cash flow in my business is not sustainable. Well, I had that for about 2 quarters in a row. I ended up in a bankruptcy. And I share that with you now differently than I might have shared it with you then, because when lightning strikes, it hurts. Ouch. It zings you. It's painful. And I want to say that right up front, because whatever giant you're facing right now, think of your own giant. Is it a bankruptcy like it was for me? I had this again last summer as my son called me and said, Dad, I have cancer. Boom. Zing. Ouch. A couple of weeks ago, my dad calls me and tells me my brother has just passed away unexpectedly. Zap. Okay, what is your giant? I'm giving you a few examples because I want you to know this is universal. Everybody has them. Everyone's got stuff. Welcome to the planet. And when it hits you, it knocks you off the feet. It hurts. Debbie says, my giants have thrown me down and are sitting on me. I can't move. I'm suffocating. Yes, that's why I shared the definition from Bruce Wilkinson. It's a very real and completely overwhelming obstacle that you encounter on the road to your dreams. This is real. And I am not here to diminish or minimize whatever giants you're facing. They are real, and you're feeling them. And I feel you, okay? Because I've been there. I've done that. So when this giant occurs, when this giant shows up, what are we going to do? One of the options is to cower in front of that giant. Let's take a look at that giant. A number of years ago, this is when my son, who is graduating from pharmacy school next week, he's a full-blown pharmacist starting, like this month. When he was in 9th grade, okay, so this is going back a few years, he was doing a little bug collection for biology class. Have you done this with your kids where, they have to go out and collect bugs and put them together in a little box and whatever as part of their class assignment? And he said, Dad, I want to go out to the West Desert and get some of those big old Mormon crickets is what they're called. You can look them up. Go Google Mormon crickets. They're just crazy. In the early days of Utah history, when the Mormon pioneers came over, these giant crickets attacked their crops and just demolished their food supply, right? And that's why they're nicknamed Mormon crickets anyway. They're these big, disgusting creatures. And so we drove out to the West Desert to gather a few of these. He wanted to get several so he could use them to trade other kids for their cool bugs. Pretty enterprising for a 9th grader. So there we go. We're heading out. Well, we got skunked. Couldn't find a darn thing out there. There were no crickets. But here's what we did find. I'll show you the picture. We found this. Where are we? Here it is. I'm running 2 computers as I'm doing this, you guys. Here's what we found. This spider was crossing the road, and we were able to get out and grab it. And it's amazing, right? And I posted this little picture on Facebook showing people, look what we found out there as we're doing our bug collection. And people were making interesting comments. Some people were saying, Oh, how cute. Look how hairy it is. Oh, it's only got 7 legs. Yeah, you're counting now, aren't you? So they didn't get it. So I posted another picture to give them some perspective. Okay, now this is interesting because when I share this picture, what happened to the spider for you? Susie, you're closing your eyes. I know. My wife, Vicky, has arachnophobia. I tell her there's treatment. She's like, I'm not interested. What changed when I showed you the second picture? Anything? Now, this is interesting because some people, I show them the second picture and they're like, oh, it's smaller than I thought. Interesting. Other people say, oh, it's bigger than I thought. And other people are like, yeah, that's kind of what I figured. Notice this because this spider and your reaction to it depends on what you're already comparing it to. Let me give you another example of how this works. I call it the decimal factor. I'm a puzzle enthusiast. Okay. I love, especially cubes like this one. Okay. The Rubik's Cube is a very traditional physical puzzle. And I learned how to do this when I was a kid, and I'm pretty good at it. I can solve it in a couple of minutes reliably. And I'm kind of a show off too. So I'm showing everybody, look what I can do, right? And my wife, Vicky, she's so sweet. And she likes to keep me humble. And so she gave me this one for my birthday. Well, this one is called Rubik's Revenge. And it is magnitudes of difficulty harder than the regular Rubik's Cube. It took me forever to puzzle over this. And I just gave up because I couldn't solve it. And I set it on my nightstand. It sat there for a couple of years, gathering dust. I pick it up every once in a while and try, but it was frustrating because I couldn't get it to solve. There are some tricky things about it that I didn't understand. And this is in the days before YouTube, by the way, because nowadays you can go on YouTube and get a tutorial, right? Back then, not the case. The source of all knowledge back then was Google, but it was before YouTube. And so I searched it on Google, Rubik's Revenge solution, and there it was, 26 pages. Detailed diagrams and instructions. I told you to stay hydrated. I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, we're here live. And so I printed out the 26 pages and I painstakingly went through it and I finally solved it. And I practiced it and I got fairly good at solving this one. And then my wife gives me this one for Christmas. Now, what do you notice from this? A lot of people, when I show them a traditional Rubik's Cube, they think it's just next to impossible. It's indistinguishable from magic to solve this thing. Well, that's not how I feel because I've already conquered this. But when my wife gave me the Rubik's Revenge, it was like, oh. And then the Professor Cube is like, oh. Right? So there's this, I call it the decimal factor. And I invite you for a minute to remember when $1 was a big deal. Do you remember? Maybe this is when you're a little kid. We got a home that's just adjacent in a cul-de-sac to a home where 2 little twins grew up. Now they're teenagers now. But when they were small, these twins, they were about 6 years old, brother and sister, were raising chickens in their backyard. And so they were selling eggs to people in the neighborhood. Their parents were helping them to learn a little bit about economy and commerce and, work, earning money. And so I was buying eggs from the twins and they came over with the dozen eggs and they presented it to me and I gave them a dollar bill and some coins to make up the cost of that dozen eggs. So funny to watch their reaction. These 2 little 6-year-olds, they grabbed the coins and the dollar. They ran over to their dad who was doing some yard work right next door. And they said, look, Dad, he gave us money showing him the coins, and this, showing him the dollar. He had no idea what the dollar was. It was like, this is money, right? These coins. But do you remember when a dollar was a big deal? Now, do you remember graduating to 10? Now $10 is a big deal. This is sometimes in junior high or whatever, right? And a dollar's not a big deal anymore, but 10 is a big deal. And then do you remember graduating to $100? Now $100 is a big deal. And do you remember graduating to $1,000? And some people kind of stall out right about there. I know I did for years. I had two clients one day in this office, that chair right over there. I remember this guy comes in first thing in the morning and he's like pulling his hair out. He's not sure how the heck he's going to come up with $300 by the end of the month so that he can keep the lights on. He is worried. Same day, 2:00 in the afternoon, another client comes in, sits in that same chair, pulling his hair out, not sure how he's going to come up with $3 million by the end of the year. Same problem, different decimal. What does this change about our giants? Your giant is only big compared to something smaller. Notice that. And it's only small compared to something bigger. So I don't want anybody to tell you your giant is small. It is compared to something bigger, but it's huge compared to something smaller. I invite you to see what it is that you're comparing it to. Now, this will tie into the tool. So, pardon me. You get sneezes and hydration and everything because we're live today. What are you comparing it to? Will you notice that? I'm getting bless you in the chat. Thank you. Appreciate that. What are you comparing it to? Notice this. Okay, hold that, put a pin in it because we're coming right back to it. There's a classic giant story in the Bible. Actually, if you're a Bible believer or if you're not, you'll probably recognize this story. David and Goliath. Okay, Goliath is this like 9-foot soldier. And David is this little shepherd kid. Okay. And Goliath was put forward by his army. And they were saying, look, here's our champion. You come, if any of your guys can beat our guy, then you win the war. It's like, you know, we're going to skip the war and just let our big guys battle it out. Well, all of the soldiers in the other army are like cowering before Goliath. They don't want to take him on. David shows up and he's like, I'll take him. And it's interesting, the wording in the Bible reveals what David's thinking was. He said, who is this to defy the God of Israel? That was his wording. Okay. Now, here's the part I want to point out. Who were all of those soldiers who were cowering in front of this 9-foot Philistine? Who were they comparing him to? Themselves. And in comparison, they looked puny. David shows up. He's not even in the army. Dad sent him with lunch for his brothers. And he sees this 9-foot Philistine and he's like, who is this to defy the God of Israel? So who is David comparing him to? God, who to David was so much bigger than Goliath that Goliath looked pretty puny in the comparison. Who or what are you comparing your giant to? Now that is relevant as we get into the tool, and I want to share this with you next. Let's go back to the slides. As you think about the decimal factor and what we've already talked about here. In the book and the movie, I'm going to refer to the movie actually, Harry Potter. Do you remember the first one? The kids are all still really young and they're going through the castle and they encounter this giant, okay, this beast. It's a 3-headed like dog type monster. called Fluffy, appropriately named, right? And this beast comes at them with the big teeth and the drool and everything, and rah, right? And so they run away. And Hermione and Ron and Harry are fleeing from this giant. They get into the stairwell there, and Hermione asks the boys something really interesting. She said, "Did you see what it was standing on? It's a trap door. It's guarding something." This was really profound. She noticed something that the boys didn't. This beast, this giant, is guarding something. We're going to use the acronym FACE, FACE. Put that in your notes, and I'll give you something for each letter on how we're going to face our giant. And Hermione just gave us the first step. Find what it's guarding. Nothing can be in your way unless you're already on your way. Think about that for a moment. Nothing can be in your way unless you're already on your way. What is it that you're on your way to? I invite you to remember what that was. And here's one shortcut to get there. What do you think your giant, whatever it is, and like I said, it can be a diagnosis, it can be a financial condition, it can be a relationship issue, it can be a mental health concern, it can be your own mood. What is it that it's stopping you from getting? That is your why. Find what it's guarding. Now, this is important because just like the story of David and Goliath, those soldiers that were cowering in front of this 9-foot giant, right? Unless you have something bigger than your giant, then you're going to cower in front of it. You've got to have something bigger than your giant. And I promise you that whatever it is it's guarding is bigger. Is it a joyful life? Is it peace in your heart and mind? Is it a transformed family culture? What is your giant guarding? Get clear about that. Just at the time of this recording, we're just a couple of weeks past a solar eclipse. And these happen occasionally, they're rare, right? But this is when the sun is completely blocked out if you're in the path of totality, which my sister was. I mean, what a cool experience, right? I experienced one several years ago. When you see an eclipse, what is it that's blocking out the sun? Think about this. When you understand how eclipse works, it's the moon. Do the math. What's bigger, the moon or the sun? The sun by a long shot. Oh, it's not even a comparison. Then how can this little bitty moon block out this ginormous sun? Because it's in your face. It's right here. Okay? We are so close to the moon in terms of the perspective between the distances. Okay? The earth, the moon, close together, the sun way out there. Because the moon's in your face, it blocks out the sun. The sun is bigger. Will you please remember that? Whatever your giant is in your face. It doesn't mean that it's bigger than whatever it's guarding. Are you kidding me? Joy in your heart, peace in your mind, love in your relationships. Those are bigger than whatever's getting in the way of that right now. That perspective is so crucial as we face our giants. Take a moment to jot down in your notes whatever your brain is telling you that you need to remember from this. And remember, it's not what I say, it's whatever your mind tells you is important for you. That's what I want you to put in your notes, because that perspective is crucial as you face your giants. F, find what it's guarding. Okay, and remember, whatever it's guarding is bigger than your giant. It just doesn't look like it because the giant's in your face. Now, the next thing, we're going to do some psychology. Psychology is all about understanding how to operate the equipment of your own mind. And in all of my coaching programs, some of you who are already members of Live on Purpose Central, you know this. Positivity practitioners, you guys who are certified in this, you know this is our core tool. It's a model that helps us to understand the operation of the equipment of our own mind. And we're not getting into all of this on today's web class, but I'm going to give you enough that you can see what's going on. It is what it is. That's right in the middle. Now, that can be kind of annoying depending on who's saying it and why. But all it means is the way things are right now, without changing anything, it is what it is. It's who you are. It's where you are. It's what you have. It's who you're with. It's the way things are without changing a thing. It is what it is. What is your brain doing? The word at the bottom of this graph here is evaluation. I invite you to notice something. And this is so cool. My job as a positivity psychologist is to illuminate the obvious. This is so cool. I get paid to tell people things they already know, or to show them things that they already see, but there's a lot of obvious things that are unnoticed, and this is one of them. Obvious but unnoticed. Let's go there for a minute. Like the feeling of your clothing on your body. Can you feel it? Oh, now you can, now that I've mentioned it. Well, you can feel it all along, but it's unnoticed until it's called your attention. Or the fact that we're speaking English. Anybody notice? Obvious, but unnoticed up until I call it to your attention. I invite you to notice that. And the thing that I'm inviting you to notice in your processing of what it is that you're judging it. The fact that you think it's a giant proves it, because it's only a giant compared to something smaller. If you were to compare it to something bigger, this would seem smaller, right? When I was going through the bankruptcy, this is a fairly personal story, but I want you to know how this works, because I'm going through this bankruptcy and I'm thinking, oh, this is terrible. This is awful. This is ginormous. This is huge. This is a giant. And Vicki and I were invited to lead a group of young people on a pioneer handcart trek reenactment. Okay, we were leaders for this group of young people who were learning about some of the early pioneer immigrants to our state where we live in Utah. And as part of that experience, we were invited to see, research whether we had any family who were in those groups, and I did. The Moulton family. The Moulton family, Thomas and Sarah Moulton, were living in England, and they decided to immigrate, to come over to the United States and to come across the plains with those early immigrants, the pioneers. And so I got to learn about them. Well, they got on a ship in England with 6 kids, ages 19 down to 2. 2 days later, they had 7 kids. Okay, moms, how would you like to give birth on a ship in 1856? Okay, suddenly this is looking a little more challenging than what I'm going through. Well, they get over to the United States. They move inland a bit to where the handcart crews are taking off, and it's too late in the season. for them to make it across the plains before the winter storms come. Well, it turns out that there was one courageous captain who said, I'll take another group. His name was Willie. If you go look at, go Google it, the Willie Handcart Company, okay, an ill-fated group who were just devastated by some of the early winter storms that they hit when they hit the high plains of Wyoming. My family was in that group. Somehow all 9 of them made it to Salt Lake City, which was their destination, but it was miraculous. I mean, there were mornings when they had to bury 15 people before they moved on. Now, I'm sharing this with you because I want you to understand what impact it had on me. Here I am thinking, oh, my life is so hard because I'm going through a bankruptcy. Now, I'm dramatizing that a little bit, but that's how I felt. It was like, this is the most huge, ginormous giant that I could ever face. I didn't sign up for this. This is terrible, horrible. And then I do this research about the Moulton family. And I'm thinking, I am not dragging my babies across the high plains of Wyoming in a winter snowstorm. I'm not wondering if I'm going to have to leave 2 or 3 of them by the side of the trail dead. I know where they're going to eat tomorrow. I know we have a roof over our heads still. And suddenly I felt gratitude for what it is without changing it. Notice the bankruptcy didn't change. What changed is my evaluation or judgment of what it is. That's why I shared this part of the model with you. It is what it is. And your giant is what it is. It could always be better. Now look at the arrows on the bottom. As long as we compare what it is to something better, that's the red arrow, we feel worse about what it is. That's what I was doing with my bankruptcy. Look what happens if we flip it. When we compare what it is, no matter what it is, to something worse, we feel better about what we've got. That's the green arrow. You can't turn this off. What I'm inviting you to do is be conscious and aware of that. Notice that it's happening. And then we are going to move to the A. Accept what it is. And I would add with gratitude. This is a tall order, okay? When I say with gratitude, you're like, well, what is there to be grateful for in this? It's a pretty good question. But most of the time, we don't even ask it as a question. It's a statement disguised as a question. What is there to be grateful for about this? Hear the exclamation point? It's not a question. Turn it back into a question. What is there to be grateful for in this? And I mean in the face of your giant. When you invite your brain to go there, it changes the energy. And that is important because we're not done yet. When we move to the top part of this model, look what the outward is, creation. We have to move forward and create something. Either you retreat from your giant or you face your giant. And if you retreat, the outcome is predictable. You get to be stuck, trapped, intimidated, and paralyzed by this giant. How's that sound? Or we get to go create something moving forward. All of our giants, I know this is a bold statement, stay with me here. All of our giants are opportunities for us to go create something even better than what we already have. Now that I am over a decade past that experience of bankruptcy, I have created something that looks very different from that. But you know what? The giant was part of the process. The giant created the opportunity. I invite you to notice this. You have the ability to make a mess. Have you noticed? Oh, yeah. And if you're not even sure about that, what if I gave you an assignment? Okay. I want you to take a half hour and go somehow make your life worse. No, before you jump out and go do that, would you ever do that on purpose? No, of course you wouldn't. But notice how quickly your amazing mind came up with half a dozen ways to pull that off, and it wouldn't even take a half hour, would it? No. Notice that. Look, this is good news. If you can make a mess, that's good news. Well, how is that good news, Dr. Paul? Because if you can make a mess, you can make, and that's good news. Now, what are you going to make? That depends on your amazing mind. On the model, when you imagine or predict or expect or anticipate or even intend for things to be worse, that's the red arrow, how do you feel? This, my friends, is anxiety. That's 30 years of clinical experience in a nutshell. When we imagine that what's coming is worse and we don't know. I invite you to notice that as well. Okay, how you doing next week? You don't know. You don't know, but you've got all kinds of predictions, don't you? Notice that. When your predictions are that it's going to get worse, you're going to feel anxiety. Guaranteed. What happens when you imagine or predict or expect that what's coming is even better than what you've already got? That's the green arrow. That's hope. And hope is the number one preventative factor for suicide. Wait, do I need to say that again? Hope is the number one preventative factor for suicide. I've just shared with you how you can create it on demand. And it doesn't matter what your giant is. Remember, I'm not saying that to minimize your giant. It is what it is, after all. But what you're creating from this is yet to be. C, create what is to be. I do a full training on this, how we create. And that question's going to come up. Okay, Dr. Paul, this is great, but how do I do it? Look, don't worry about how right now. Get the ideas down and then start working on how. Actually, you know what? My daughter pointed this out to me recently. I was flustered over one of my giants, and she reminded me, Dad, who, not how. That is the title of a book by Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan. Loved the book. I had forgotten the concept in the moment. I don't need to know how. I need to know who knows how and create relationships. Because I guarantee somebody has already faced your giant, some version of your giant. What if you could tap into that brilliance? Think who, not how. So as I give you the steps here, F, find what it's guarding. A, accept what it is and even be grateful for it. C, create what is to be with your amazing creative power. And from there, we will move forward. Let me show you the whole model here, okay? I've got, like I said, I've got other trainings. I'm going to offer you a way to really wrap your head around this in just a minute. What the model shows us is that no matter what it is, underscore that for a minute, no matter what. I'm not trying to be insensitive when I say it doesn't matter what your giant is. I'm just saying, look, you can't shock me. I've heard some of the darndest crap you can imagine. And I am convinced at this point, after the hundreds, probably thousands, certainly thousands of people that I have interviewed, that it doesn't matter what your giant is. What matters is what your brain does with this. First, in evaluation mode, where you judge it and get to a place of gratitude and peace. That's that bottom green arrow. Energy precedes outcome. And what that means is the energy we create in evaluation mode will then move forward with us into creation mode, and we will go create from this, with this, because of this, an upgrade. Something better is yet to come, and that's hope. I've just shared with you how you can gain peace and hope. What that looks like in the model is enjoy the journey. See, the good news is we don't have to take down your giant in order for you to feel joy. In fact, the research is ever more compellingly pointing to this truth, that your giant is more likely to come down when you enjoy the journey. The model that I just shared with you shows that it's available on demand. It doesn't matter what it is. But what my experience tells me is when we can get into this, I call it the positivity vector, and it's really just understanding how to operate the equipment of your own mind. Then we can take down giants, but we don't have to wait until the giants are down in order to experience joy. In fact, putting ourselves in this positive position makes it more likely that we will take down our giants. Find what it's guarding, accept what it is, and create what is to be. Enjoy the journey. That's how we face our giants. Now, I promise you, and some of you are putting some questions. Yes, the Q&A is open, okay, for those of you who are here on Zoom. If you're on YouTube, put it in the comments. I'll try to get to it eventually. Probably not live. We'll see. Go to the Q&A if you have questions. We're going to get to that, but I promise you a special offer. Now, when you come to a free web class, you expect that. Yes, I have something to offer. If it's not for you, that's fine. But if it is, you're welcome. All right, here's what we've put together for you. What if you could experience a clear path to face your giant or giants? Some of them are plural, right? What if you had a clear path? We're offering you confidence to win this battle with your giant. I know, and I want to remind you that there's something bigger than your giant. It only seems big because it's in your face. And two important things happen when you win. The first thing is obvious. You get to live life with your giant slain. Okay, you took it down. It is so fun to be on this side of the bankruptcy. All right, I got other giants I'm handling right now, including a son with cancer, including some challenges in my business. There's always something, okay? But when we win, we get to have a more joyful life, and we take down that giant for other people. We become the inspiration for others who are facing similar giants. And I think those are two great reasons to win. You're going to have the confidence to win. You will achieve peace and hope in your heart and mind. I'm not saying you could, I'm saying you will. I know how this works. And the models that we employ here are proven over centuries. They're not just things I made up. I've just given a model to timeless truths about the power of our mind. And I'm so excited about some of the current research that's coming out that supports what we've been doing here. It's so exciting. I just read a book by Bruce Lipton called The Biology of Belief. He's a cellular biologist who's coming up with the same answers that we have right here. How cool is this? You will get the support, the tools, and the encouragement that you need to do it. So imagine for a minute if you had that support. If you had that knowledge of the timeless principles and models that allow you to do this, and a connection, information is free. Some of you are watching on YouTube right now. You can find anything on YouTube. I've got over 1,000 videos on my channel right now. The information is free. Containers are rare. Containers where you get real-time connection to ask questions and interact with other practitioners who get this. Here's what I put together. A master class on how to face your giants. This is a 6-week course. And we're going to only do 1 hour a week. Okay, so it will be condensed into that 1 hour where we'll do it 3 weeks in May and 3 weeks in June. It'll span across the next 2 months. And we'll give you time to work on it in between. You will get live support and help with this. It's a master class. And I am not saying this to brag, but I am a black belt in positivity. I practice it every day. I've got over 30 years of experience now. So I'm not saying it to brag. I'm saying it to tell you who I am. And I am qualified to teach this master class. I'm inviting you to join me. When I do an intensive, personalized master class like this, normally I charge about $1,000 for it. And the value of this one is $997. And I thought that's what I'm going to sell. But you know what? I decided that's not it. That's not it. Okay. So pause for a minute before you bail and say, oh, I don't know if I have $1,000. Look, it's worth more than $1,000 if you can get past your giant. But stay with me for a minute, because I realized I've already put together a resource where you get to have live, personalized interaction with me. I stopped providing private coaching except for my inner circle group. I have a very small group of clients who work with me personally. I don't have space or time to do that anymore. I used to do it all day, every day. But now with everything else that I'm doing, it's a very small group. I show up every week to provide live coaching along with group coaching and discussions, the support that you need to move forward to face your giants. So it's more than a master class. I'm already doing this at Live on Purpose Central. Live on Purpose Central is where I have put my life's work, the courses, the books, everything. And so I thought, you know what? I am going to put Face Your Giants, this new masterclass, into the membership. I've already decided to do this with a number of things. I'm there every week. I used to sell that for about $2,500 a year. Just people could come in and have access to once a week group coaching with me. The Positivity Power Up is a personal development course that I taught for years and sold it, the recorded version, for $400. You can still buy it for $400. I just threw it into the membership. We've got the Parenting Power Up there, $150 product. We've thrown it in and we expanded it this year. So now it's not only 18 audio course segments, we've got 20 video segments in there now too, and a 5-day challenge on how to get your kids to listen without yelling. We just dumped it all into the membership. We have live events, discussion groups, and I am putting Face Your Giants, the master class. This is a 6-week live course that I'm inviting you to attend. I've put it into the membership. So to access it, instead of paying me the $997 or buying all of these things separately, let's just get you in for $67. Now, why did I pick $67? I did some research, and in the United States of America, the current market shows that one session of mediocre therapy is about twice what you'd have to pay for a full month at Live on Purpose Central. I cut that price in half. I put it up as the monthly membership fee. And then it's $67 a month as long as you want to continue. But you can discontinue anytime you want. This gets you the masterclass, Face Your Giants, live with me. Everybody else who joins after this will have access to the course, but it won't be live. And I'm planning some special considerations for those who join me live. Look, if you're already a member of Live on Purpose Central, you should be doing a little happy dance right now, because you get for free, meaning no additional cost. You're already paying for your membership. This is included. Those of you who are not yet in, you can get in now for $67 a month. You see the URL at the bottom of the screen, drpauljenkins.com/special. And when you go there, you'll see the order form. Fill it out. There's 2 parts to it. Okay, so when you fill out part 1, go to part 2, and it'll take your payment information and everything, and then you'll be in. Okay, I love what we're doing there, and I am ready to help you get past your giants. I invite you to ask a question. What have you got from this today? Hopefully you took some notes. Hopefully those notes are about what you heard, not necessarily what I said. Is it time for you to get past your giants? Now, just before people say yes, sometimes they forget the reasons that they're here. You're here for a lot of good reasons, and it's not only for you, it's for those that you love. Some think it costs too much. I hope I've blown that out of the water for you. For about half the price of one session of mediocre therapy, you get all of what I've offered you. That is the monthly membership fee. What better place to take care of your mental hygiene? Some say they don't have the time. Look, you've got to, that's always a lie, by the way. We're not going to get into that today, but I understand because I tend to pack things up in my schedule. Here's the truth. You've got exactly the same amount of time as everybody else. It's roughly 24 hours every day. And that's 7 days a week. It's the same as everybody else. How you spend it is what matters. Here's one of my promises to you. You come in and you give it an honest shot. You keep your promise to yourself. This doesn't change my life much, okay? But it changes your life tremendously if you'll keep your promises to yourself. And if you'll give it an honest shot, I promise the value you will receive in both time and money will be far more than what you spend. And if it's not, then you don't have any business being here, and fire me. Go get somebody else to work for you. Or you've tried everything and it hasn't worked. That's not even possible. Especially if you haven't tried this yet, okay? I love what Susie just put in the chat. Dr. Paul and Live on Purpose Central has changed my life. Oh, Susie, I'm honored to be on your team. It's packed with valuable principles and resources. The membership is the best ever investment in your personal development and enriching your relationship. I got to hire Susie on my sales team. But Susie is a member of our community, and thank you for sharing that, Susie. I know some of the rest of you are already in the community as well. You felt some hope today. What would it be like to get more of that? I think part of my job as a coach is to help you get out of your own way and move forward to keep your promises to yourself. And because of that, I value those who will take action. I'm going to stick around for about 15 minutes to answer some questions. All right? Your questions. I'm going to take on as many as I can in about 15 minutes. Whoever signs up before I sign off, and that means you go to drpauljenkins.com/special and sign up. Okay? Whoever does that in the next 15 minutes, I will personally spend 30 minutes with you in a private consultation at absolutely no additional cost. And I will have a record of who signs up in that time. I will message you personally with a link to my calendar. I don't do private coaching anymore. Like I said, except with my small inner circle group, I will do it for you, okay? Because I value You're taking action right now. And this is true for those of you who are on YouTube as well. You didn't even have to register for this for you to take advantage of that special offer. Now, that's only going to happen for those who sign up in the next 15 minutes. You can tell I get passionate about this. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to take a little drink of water. And I think the link is in the chat. Natasha, you stuck it in there, didn't you? Yeah, could you put it in again so it goes right to the top of the chat? Q&A is open. I see we have a number of questions there, and I'm going to pick up what I can in the chat. And if there's time, I'm even going to go to YouTube and see what your comments are. As we take a breath and get to your questions. Mary, I like the live, but I'm working retail with odd hours. That's fun, huh? I would be fine with a recording. If I had questions, I know how to get them to help. You know what, Mary, when you come in to Live on Purpose Central, we have members all over the planet. And to schedule something at a particular hour is 2 o'clock in the morning for Jade in Australia, or for Apurva in India. So we can't find a time that's good for everybody. So what we're doing to accommodate for that, I move around my live coaching each week. And this is in addition to the masterclass, by the way. If you can't come to the masterclass live, don't worry about that. We'll put it up as a course there on the channel and you'll get it. There's an advantage to being there live, because at the end of the recording every day, I'm going to turn off the recording and do live Q&A with those who are in the class. So there's an advantage to being there live, but we'll have all the recordings there. And for my regular weekly Ask Dr. Paul sessions, you can submit questions to us by email. I answer all of those every week too. So you can simply go into the archived recording of that session and you'll hear me addressing your question that week. That's how we handle that. So hopefully that takes care of that for you. Darren is saying, Dr. Paul is a black belt positivity. Yes, I am, Darren. So grateful for these principles and Paul's passion. Thank you, Darren. I appreciate that. Gary, could you please put up the face definitions again? Rather than putting them up, Carrie, and it will be in the recording, but F is find what it's guarding. A is accept what it is. C is create what is to be. And by the way, we are diving deep into each one of these steps in that 6-week masterclass. FACE is only 4 of those weeks. All right, so we got some bonus material on either side of that, but we will flesh that out, okay? You are going to get the specific tools that you need to walk through that process. That's what the masterclass is all about. And by the way, it's starting next week. We're recording this on May 2nd. The masterclass starts live inside the membership. That's the only way you can access that. And that's better than selling it to you for $1,000. I mean, just come in for 67 and you have access to everything else too. We're starting live May 9th, 2024. So if you want to be part of that live, you've got to act soon. And if you're going to act soon anyway, act in the next 15 minutes so that you can get a private consultation with me. That's what I'm thinking. Did I get through them all, Carrie? Find what it's guarding. Accept what it is. Create what is to be. That's the C. And E, enjoy the journey. Get into that positivity vector. Energy precedes outcome. Once we achieve that, giants come down. There's a lot of good reasons to take them down. Darren posted that in the chat as well. Thank you, Darren. Natasha has put the link in there, drpauljenkins.com/special. You'll see when you open that page, it is a limited time offer. You've got about a week to take advantage of this. But if you're going to take advantage of it anyway, sign up in the next 15 minutes. Griselle, you're in. You signed up. I will message you. We're going to talk. Okay. You get a half hour free with me. Thank you for coming in. Carrie says, thank you. Mary's got it. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to the Q&A next. That was the chat. Jenny says, how can I have clarity over what to work on first when I'm feeling overwhelmed with different issues? Where do you start first, especially when you have children who need you and need you to work on your spiritual and mental health? Oh, Jenny, I feel you. And this is exactly why we created what we did. Janine, you're in. Thank you for jumping in. Oh, so excited to see you guys inside. Um, Jenny, there are 7 key relationships. And what we're going to do is apply positive principles in the context of our 7 key relationships. And you already acknowledged this. You said you've got children who need you. Yeah, that's a season of your life where you're going to focus on your key relationships. And they are, really briefly, your creator, yourself, your spouse, your children, your extended family. And these are in order, by the way, because if your children need help, we're not going to be sacrificing that to handle other relationships. So now I got off. Creator, self, spouse, children, extended family, other people outside your family, and things. That's the order we put it in. Hopefully that helps as you prioritize that. But also, you'll read in my book, especially in the first 3 chapters, I talk a lot about discontent and the power of discontent. That is your emotional guidance system to tell you what you get to work on. And there's a way to look at where the pain is, and that's your brain telling you need to work on that first. Okay, so hopefully those 2 things are going to help you get a little bit of a handle on that, and bring your specific questions to the weekly Ask Dr. Paul sessions. That's where I'm going to take those on. You know what? I'm even just going to check and tell you when the next one is, because it's coming up. Let's see. Oh, it's tomorrow. It's Friday, May 3rd, 11 o'clock Mountain Time is the next time I'm taking live questions. I'll be there live on the platform. So those of you who signed up, Janine, you're in. Griselle, you're in. You guys can come tomorrow live. I'll be coaching. And then we start the masterclass next week on the 9th. And I'm still doing an Ask Dr. Paul next week as well. So we're going to take that on, Jenny. Bring that live. I've given you a place to start. Hopefully that helps. Someone anonymously asks, I don't know what to do to get out of the normal routine. Okay, I feel stuck all the time, like nothing is going to change. And that, by the way, is a thought, not a feeling. One of the things we focus on in the membership, and I mentioned the positivity power up, that's where you can dive into the model, this one, the one that I introduced you to today. And one of the key elements there is to start to distinguish between thoughts, feelings, and circumstances. And normally what we do is we think of, when we're describing our circumstances, we're actually describing our thoughts. And when we say, I feel like, anytime you say the word like after I feel, you're going into a thought, not a feeling. Now, I share that with you. I don't even know who this is because it's anonymous, but I feel like I'm not preparing them for life. I'm reading on. We are raising 5 kids, and I feel like I'm not preparing them for life in general. That's a thought, not a feeling. There's a feeling associated with it. The feeling can typically be honed down to one word. And anonymous, I'm giving you a little sense of how I'm going to coach you when you're on the platform, because once we distinguish between thoughts and feelings, we work on the thoughts and the feelings change. And the outcomes are determined by the energy. So I'm kind of all over. Let me finish here. We're raising 5 kids. I feel like I'm not preparing them for life in general because I don't do life in general. I don't even know what to ask for, but I know I want to do better. Yes. There's something bigger than your giant, dear anonymous. I'm tired of arguing with my kids. Yes, and the same arguments all of the time. Right. We get stuck in those ruts. Nothing changes even after what seems like good talks. Okay, you speak for so many of us, because here's what happens. We get trapped in our own thinking. and we don't even know what to change. I guarantee once you start to learn how to operate the equipment of your own mind, the game changes. What I would invite you to do, if you haven't yet signed up right now, because then we get a half hour together too, okay? And I want to coach you privately and personally. When you get coached on the platform, it's personal, it's not private. Okay, do you hear the difference? So you can just listen in, or you can raise your hand and come talk to me, and that's when we get to really personalize it. This is the starting place. This is where you start. I'm talking from 30 years of clinical experience. I am confident about this. This is where you start. And all of the stuff that you think is the problem is going to take on a different shape once we get into how to operate the equipment of your own mind. And I am so honored to be on your team. Come work with me on that. Okay. You don't have to do this alone. Debbie, I think I have a membership, but I'm having trouble logging on. Oh, you know what, Debbie? We're going to follow up on that. Natasha, would you just private message Debbie and see if you can help her troubleshoot that? Because if you're already a member, we can help you get logged in. That one's an easy one. Natasha, I'm going to invite you to help her with that. Debbie also says, I was the sole caregiver of my mother who passed March 23 and left me her house. My siblings are suing me for the house. Therefore, I have been halted in doing the house repairs and making it my own. I am forced into a holding. How do I get past this? Oh. Debbie, first breathe, okay? Keep breathing. This is a giant compared to smaller things. Because I bet you can think of other things that you would, I'll take this, thank you. That's where we're going to start. Okay. Remember what you're on your way to. So if you apply the FACE acronym, find what it's guarding, and it might be a sense of independence or having your own place or whatever, of which this house could be a step, even if you don't own it outright. Okay. And when you compare, I have a house that's being contested by my siblings versus I don't have anything, this looks pretty good. And we can build from this to go create an upgrade. So accepting what it is, that's the A. Creating what is to be, that's the C. And you'll know how to do that once you get into an energy that will precede the outcome. That's why it's so important to get good with where you are. And as long as we're like, oh, this sucks, that creates an energy that's really hard to create upgrades from. So follow the FACE acronym. Let's see what you can do with that. And Debbie, if you do have a membership, let's get you back in, okay? Because I'll be there coaching tomorrow and maybe we can talk live. I hope that helps. Mitchell, how do you create when you are facing something out of your control? Ailments, aging, other people reactions. Thank you, Mitchell, for this question, because here's what I learned years ago as I was trying to do a plumbing project. I know, weird, huh? I'm not a plumber, I'm a psychologist, but I consulted my dad, who knows a little bit about this, and he said, look, there's 2 rules about plumbing. Rule number 1, water runs downhill. Okay, thanks, Dad. Good to know. Rule number 2, don't lick your fingers. Which is kind of funny on so many levels. But you know what? It's the same in psychology. Rule number 1, kind of like the water runs downhill. Some things you control, other things you don't. Mitchell, your question in and of itself reveals that you already know that. Okay, some things you control, other things you don't. Here's rule number 2. This is the don't lick your fingers rule. Focus on what you control. Because even if you take an ailment or aging, okay, there are natural laws and processes that govern some of those patterns. It's called gravity, right? And I don't know about you, but where I live, gravity's on every day. So we're going to acknowledge that. And in the context of the gravity, the ailments, the aging, what do I control inside of that? And that opens up a whole new world. Okay, so you can create, and you're going to create from what you control. Okay. All right. Anonymous. My problem is with helping my husband in his career. How do I help her move forward when it is not in my total control, but directly affects me and our family? Okay, Anonymous. You heard what I just said to Mitchell, right? Some things you control, other things you don't. You focus on what you control. And by the way, I think it's awesome that you want to help your husband in his career. How your husband handles things is his job. How you handle things is your job. And when we get into our key relationships, our 7 key relationships, this is your spouse. And you're talking about your children because it affects you and your family, right? Those are in the first hand of the key relationships. We handle our first hand differently than the second hand, by the way. That's a whole other conversation. I would suggest to you, dear Anonymous, that your job is to love him, not to make sure that he moves forward well in his career. That little shift puts you in a position where you get to do your job regardless of what he does. And how you show up is the thing that will directly affect you and your family more than whatever the outcomes are for his job project or career. Okay, that's my short answer, but this is something we might want to dive into a little more too. Thank you for your question. Mitchell asks again, or it might be a different, no, I think it's the same, Mitchell. What do you do when your anxiety is a result of fretting over what to do to solve your issues? Yeah, it almost always is, Mitchell. Anxiety is an interesting experience that we all get to have as humans. In the model, this is anxiety. Okay, this is anxiety, this upper red arrow in the creation mode, because it happens when we imagine or anticipate that what it is going to get worse. And it's not just that you're fretting over what to do to solve your issues. It's that you're imagining negative outcomes or a failure to solve or accomplish whatever it is that you're setting forth to do. Notice that's in the imaginary space. And so this is depression. The bottom arrow is depression. The top arrow is anxiety. And we handle that by understanding how to operate the equipment and then taking intentional steps forward with that. I just wanted to show you how that fits in the model, Mitchell, and hopefully that helps a little bit. Jenny, I want to sign up for the next live, but I'm not sure how to do it. All right, here's the thing. Once you're a member, you will have a calendar. It's under live events. So once you sign in, you'll get your login credentials, and you get those immediately, you guys, once you sign up. Some of you already have them. Once you sign in, go to the top. There's a little bar there that says live events. Click on that. It will open a calendar. That's how you get in. All you have to do is just sign in at the time, put it on your calendar, and then sign in at that time. The Zoom link will be there. You're in. Okay, that's all you have to do. You don't have to register or anything. As a member, you have free access to all of that. Debbie, I have fear of my grandson and I being homeless. Yeah, that would be a giant, wouldn't it? Compared to something smaller, like not being homeless, right? But compared to something bigger, you'd probably take that over, being interred in a concentration camp with your grandson. I don't know. See how my imagination works? So we're going to put it into perspective first. Could you handle it? Debbie, this is something I learned first from Dr. Susan Jeffers. She wrote a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. The title is even better than the book, but it's such a powerful example of how this works. And she said in that book that underneath every fear is one belief. That's a bold statement, but just follow this for a minute. Behind every belief, or behind every fear, including this one, the fear of you and your grandson being homeless, is one belief. And that belief is, I can't handle that. Debbie, I don't think that's going to happen because I'm guessing you have the kind of human treasury and mental resources that will allow you to figure something out. But going beyond that, could you handle it if you were homeless? Now, that's an interesting question. I would just invite you to spend a little time with that. Could I handle it? And most people, when we really push the issue, come up with this answer. Well, I guess I'd have to. Yeah, that sounds like a yes to me. What happens when you believe that you could handle anything, including that? And like I said, you can't shock me. I've heard some of the darndest crap you can imagine. I believe that you could handle it. And it wouldn't be fun necessarily. It wouldn't be easy. I didn't think I could handle a bankruptcy, but guess I could. Right? It's not what I signed up for. But what that does is it puts our heart at peace. If that happened, could you handle it? Yes, you could. And probably it won't. But energy precedes outcome. And that's why we learn how to operate the equipment. This is what we're all about at Live on Purpose Central. You guys, I am so excited to jump into that master class with you. Face your giants. And by the way, you'll notice a little difference in the title of this webinar, Facing Your Giants. And the master class is Face Your Giants. You feel the energetic shift there? We are going to jump in and do it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for honoring me with your presence. I am honored to be on your team, and I'm looking forward to working with you inside. If that's not for you, I send you on your way with my wishes, my best wishes, and all the love that I can muster. And if you're in, I'm with you. Okay? So let's do this, shall we? Let's go face our giants. I'm going to check to see who signed up in the time that we've spent here together. And I'll give it a little bit of grace, maybe a 15-minute leeway, so that if you're still in the process of filling that out, we'll catch you. We'll catch you, and I'll give you that bonus of spending a half hour privately with me. I look forward to that conversation as well.